Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Greg Kimball, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is Flight Lieutenant Joel Flannery. We are honoured to acknowledge Major General Udi Adam, Director General, Ministry of Defence, Israel, and the accompanying delegation. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by visitors and students on behalf of the following schools: from New South Wales, Plumpton Public School and St Columba's Primary School, Adamstown, and from Western Australia, St Mark's Anglican Community School Primary Department, Hillary's. Please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's first World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we'll read a story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and operations for more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Private Charles Radnall. Known to friends and family as Charlie, Charles Victor Radnall was born around 1887 in Tarnagulla, Victoria, to William and Annie Radnall. His father was a miner in the district who, in the year Charles was born, found a gold nugget that weighed more than 1.5 kilos. Charles was schooled locally before going on to work as a grocer. In the years before the outbreak of war in 1914, he worked for Thompson and Comries in Tarnagulla. Charles Radnall tried a number of times to enlist within the Australian Imperial Force and was turned down at least twice. In January 1915, his younger brother George was successful in enlisting at the age of 16, having put his age up to get in. Charles Radnall was finally accepted for service at the end of January 1916 and was posted to the 38th Battalion. After a period of training in Australia, Radnall left for active service overseas aboard the troop ship Runic in June 1916. He first went to England, where he continued his training and spent nearly a month in Bulford Military Hospital. By November, he was well enough to join his battalion on the Western Front and spent the bitterly cold winter of 1916 rotating in and out of the front line. On the 27th of February 1917, a raiding party of the 38th Battalion attacked a German line near the French village of Bras-Grenier. Private Radnall had been on scout duty the previous week, and his courage and coolness in tight corners during this time saw him included in the raiding party. The raid went ahead just after midnight, pushing through to a rear German trench and capturing a machine gun, a searchlight, and 17 prisoners. After the first wave launched their attack, Private Radnall stayed behind to lay out a tape to guide stretcher bearers sent to bring in the wounded. As he was doing so, he was killed by German fire. Radnall's mate, Private John Chivers, wrote to William Radnall in Tarnagulla, saying, "I have always found him a clean, living man, and a mate whose example I was glad to follow. He was very popular with all who knew him, and he will be missed by many in his company. It is terribly hard for you, I know, in losing him, but I wanted you to know he died bravely and died helping others." Private Charles Radnall is buried in Site-Bonjing Military Cemetery at Armentières today under the words, "Lord, grant him a reward worthy of his sacrifice. He was 29 years old." 6 months after his brother's death, Private George Radnall displayed such courage and initiative at Zona Baker that he was awarded the Military Medal. He later died of wounds the following year, aged 19. Charles Radnall's name is listed on the military honour of my right among more than 60,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. This is but one of many stories of service and sacrifice here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Charles Victor Radnall, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better future.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them. lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you all a very good evening.